Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 subtle psychology / persuasion techniques that will make your prospects choose you over your competitors. One leverages the power of social proof. Another one disrupts automatic rejections. You know, the type of people who have a tendency to reject you before you've even, really said anything. You might have knocked on the door and they reject you straight away. This thing I'm going to give you is going to disrupt that process there. And the third basically boosts compliance by giving your audience genuine freedom, or your visitors to your website. So something I want to clear up before I continue: this is an ethical persuasion channel. Everything that I teach you is very powerful stuff in behavioral science, in persuasion. It comes straight from the studies. And I hope that you go away from this and you use it ethically, because there is already too many people out there who are manipulating people who don't have any integrity, and I don't think my audience are those types of people. So when you go away and you use this ethically, you'll get great results for yourself. You'll also get great results for your client as well. When you get great results for your client, they will speak very positively about you because they've had a great experience. So there's a little bit of psychology right there. Make sure you use all this stuff ethically and you'll get great results with it. So tactic number 1, social proof. A lot of you already know what social proof is. And basically, social proof, as a refresher, is people trust what others already trust. So think of reviews and things like this. People read reviews to then buy a product, read the experiences of other people. There's a really interesting study into social proof that had a slightly different angle on it. So it was in 2008, and it was by Goldstein, Cialdini, and Grifescius. I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but they're all researchers, very good researchers in the field of behavioral science as well, very well respected. And they experimented with different signs in a hotel, and these signs were encouraging guests to reuse their towels. So when you're in a hotel, generally you get housekeeping who come around once a day. They clean your room and they also swap your towels out. That uses a lot of energy, and it's really bad for the environment that people get new towels every day. So this hotel was trying to cut back on energy costs by encouraging people who are staying at the hotel to actually just reuse their towels. And they tried everything. They tried environmental messages saying, hey, you can save the environment by just reusing your towel and not getting a new towel each day. They tried everything. Nothing really worked except a few different things which are related to persuasion. So they created signs that highlighted the fact that most guests reused their towels, which then in turn boosted compliance by an impressive 34%. So they basically highlighted what other people were doing. And when the message was even more specific as well, this is what's really interesting, mentioning previous guests who stayed in that exact room, towel reuse climbed even higher as well. So the reason social proof is so effective is because it's deeply rooted in human evolution. We are very tribal creatures. We're very social creatures. And historically, following the crowd often meant the safety and the survival, basically, of the entire tribe. So this behavior is instinctive. This is why social proof is very powerful. It still guides many of our decisions today, even though we have no idea what those decisions are, because we don't pay attention really to our thought processes, our unconscious thoughts as well, because it's hard to. We naturally assume that a popular choice is more trustworthy and beneficial. Now, I've personally tested this. I've tested it in a lot of different places for a lot of different companies that I've consulted for. And I've tested it in my own webinars as well. When I used to do webinars, when I mentioned how many people had registered to a webinar rather than just inviting people to join, registrations in my own business increased by 33% on the 2 campaigns that I did it. Why? Well, people just naturally trust the popular decisions of the tribal group. So they assume if many others are involved that it must be valuable and it must be necessary as well. So another great example is online reviews. People really rely heavily on online reviews. I order things from Amazon all the time, and the first thing I check is this the product I need? Do the reviews show that this product is pretty good? And when those 2 boxes are kind of ticked, I look for other things as well. I eventually just buy the product, right? And I give the decision to basically the people who've come before me to save my own brain. The collective wisdom of many individuals is enough for me to actually defer my decision making to the group because I think they were probably smarter than me collectively. You understand? Okay, so tactic number 2, the peak technique, and this is to interrupt automatic rejections with unusual requests. So there was a really interesting study in 1994. Researchers Santos, Levy, and Pratkarnis, hope I'm pronouncing those names right, they got a bunch of people in the study to go out and ask for people for spare change on the street, right? What they found was when a person asked a passerby for a specific number like 17 cents instead of the typical, have you got a pound, or have you got a dollar, or have you got some sort of, money for me, and it was a specific request, they experienced a significant jump in compliance from people who actually gave them money. So it went from roughly about 23% to around about 37%. So this is really specific, and because it's specific, it interrupts people's basically autopilot of turning down. And the psychology behind the peak technique basically involves breaking that cognitive script. So we go through our day to day, largely responding to automatic familiar situations, essentially, especially when it comes to, requests and things. People request things from us all the time. And if you live in a city, for instance, I live in a city, I get asked for spare change. If I walk down probably a 15-minute walk through the city to a coffee shop, I'm probably going to get asked for spare change 10 times maybe. And so it becomes this automatic behavior that I actually turn people down instantly. I'm like, sorry, I've just got my card. Sorry, just got my card today. Sorry, just got my card today. If a person really does get in front of me, I might give them some money, right? Or they do something which isn't part of the script, I might actually give them money. That's really interesting because it's interrupting that script there, which is the same as what happened in the study here. So when something unusual interrupts our mental autopilot, it basically focuses and forces our brains to pause, reassess, and engage thoughtfully, essentially. It essentially gets us thinking in the situation. So I've seen similar effects in my LinkedIn outreach. A few of you guys know that I used to do a LinkedIn lead generation agency, absolute mouthful, trying to tell people exactly what that was. But essentially I would reach out to companies and teach their sales teams how to do DMing and how to get business through LinkedIn and how to, the science and psychology behind getting people quickly on calls. So I was pretty good at it as well. But I would know, I did this little experiment once and it was based on this persuasion study. That persuasion study actually didn't have too many participants in it. So I wanted to test it. Sometimes they have a lot of participants in a study, and when you don't have many participants in a study, it means that it could have just been a one-off, the result, basically. So I wanted to test this, and I test it in my outreach. And I used to ask people for a quick 15-minute call as my initial call to get them on, which worked very well. But I thought, you know what, maybe if I could be a little bit specific around that number there. So I started saying, rather than quick 15-minute call, I said quick 12-minute call, right? And this actually made people laugh, and they booked a call, believe it or not. I think it was roughly about 11% that more people booked. I had checked my figures before. It was roughly about 11% or 13%. It was one or the other. But basically, more people booked onto the call, and then each person's response when I started speaking with them, because these are just business owners, they were like, you know what? No one has ever specifically asked me for a specific amount of my time other than 2 minutes or a quick call or something like that. And I was like, well, you see. So maybe it was just the humor that actually got them on the call. They thought it was pretty absurd, to be honest with you. And so that's what made them go on the call. But you can see the similar effect regardless of the reason behind it. And you can use these similar effects in marketing campaigns. You can feature unusual numbers or creative wording, grabbing attention and enhancing, that memory retention and getting them to engage and come out of their script. This is called pattern interrupts, by the way, if you want to dive a little bit deeper on psychology. If you want to hear more about pattern interrupts, always just let me know in the comments, and I will create some content around these things as well. Very interesting stuff pattern interrupts are. They can be worked in any scenario, from sales to marketing, but even to self-improvement as well. When people are not feeling very good about themselves, pattern interrupts are very, very good. Okay, cool. So tactic number 3 We're going to call this the BYAF, and that is But You Are Free. So, in a short line, what is this? And really, it is to empower your audience, your visitors, your clients, your customers, by clearly giving them control. So, we live in a world where people actually try and cut like their clients, they try and cut their visitors, their audience members off from having any form of control. But I actually think one of the most persuasive things to do, at least that's what behavioral science backs, is giving your audience or members or visitors as much control as possible, right? Because then they end up actually complying more with you, which is basically really counterintuitive, but that's what happens. Guéguen and Pascal in 2000, again, hope I'm pronouncing those names right, they did a study that worked by simply reminding people that they're free to choose a particular option or refuse a request, actually increased compliance. So from around 10% up to around 48%. So that's almost 5 times higher, this increased compliance. So people don't feel pressured when they feel empowered, right? So think about, are my audience or visitors or the people who I'm trying to sell to, are they feeling pressured right now? If they are, you need to take your foot off the gas, basically, put your foot on the brake and allow them to feel a bit more empowered and in control of their situation, which paradoxically increases their willingness to comply, which makes no sense. It's completely counterintuitive, but some of these things in persuasion and some of these things in behavioral science don't make any sense, but they've been tested and they've been tested again, and it seems to be how human nature works. So the But You Are Free to Choose technique or tactic works by addressing the psychological resistance known as reactance in people. We have this ability to react. So we have a desire to preserve our sense of freedom and autonomy. In fact, if you do any sales calls, you've done any sales calls, have been involved in any type of company research, you will say that a big key driver in humans is actually the need to feel in control. It's also arguably where the need for status comes from as well, because we as humans want status, and when we get status, we actually have freedom that comes with that. Think of kings in the past, right? Or people who were in charge of tribes. They generally had the most status, which also would lead to the most freedom and autonomy as well. So if they feel pressured, they're likely to resist even beneficial requests. This is what I found as well. So by explicitly, this is called shutting down when you are in some form of sale or some form of negotiation with someone. Like, you can actually try to pressure someone too much and then they shut down to all requests, which is obviously not where you want to be. But to get out of this, you can explicitly remind them that the decision is basically theirs to make, and the openness to that request actually grows as well, and it helps people get a little bit unstuck. So I recently applied this technique to a business that I'm working with, and they have abandoned cart emails, and just reminding customers that they were entirely free to ignore the reminder of, you are abandoning your cart right now. Do you sure you don't just want to check out? And reminding the customers that they are free to do that actually drove the sales rates from 12% to 18%. So it's a whole 6% there. It might not sound big, but let me tell you, this website had 1.2 million visitors per month. So almost overnight, that rate completely changed there. So this technique is very, very effective in a lot of different contexts. It's effective in surveys, in requests for reviews, and even, like I mentioned before, negotiations, where reinforcing that the other side actually has a lot of control often leads to more positive outcomes. Now, you won't read about any of this stuff, guys, in mainstream books or, any typical pop psychology books. And the reason why is because I just don't think they look at the studies when they actually produce these books and popular books on negotiating and things like this. So by the way, behavioral science actually says that you need to hear things repeated to you multiple times, and summaries of things as well for it to go in different angles. So if you notice when I do these videos, I teach you the thing, I give you an example as well, I give you a few examples of each thing, and then I will summarize at the end. It's important you stay for the summary. A lot of people click off at the summary, but it's important you stay because it actually helps with your learning as well. There's science behind it. So to wrap up, what you need to do for your business is you need to harness social proof. You need to disrupt those automatic rejection requests. And as well, you don't need to control your audience or your visitors or your clients or your customers. You actually need to focus on how you can empower them as well by reminding them of their own freedom. So these tactics are firmly grounded in psychological research. And if you apply them ethically as well, you can absolutely increase your persuasion skills. You can increase your conversions. You can, outcompete your competitors as well. A lot of these things have got really, really good results for some of the companies that I've consulted for. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've taken the actual study and applied it practically. And that's exactly what I want you to do. Next week, we're going to do a similar video. If you enjoyed this one, please let me know. I go off your feedback as well for these types of videos. So please let me know that you enjoyed this and I will make another type of video like this. Okay, guys, take it easy. See you in the next one.